Hello, this is part 5 of Lab A, configuring the ASA 5505 device using the command line interface. In part 4, we set up network address translation and set up a default route on the ASA device. You can see that we now have VLAN 2, the outside network, configured, VLAN 1, the inside network. We have NAT configured and a default route. And so in this part, what we're going to do is we're going to set up DHCPD services so that we can hand out IP addresses to our local clients on the inside network. Right now, the PCB is set up with a static IP address 192.168.1.3, and that's my laptop right here configured. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the DHCP server on the ASA device, and then hopefully we will pick up an IP address on the client. So let's do that now. So to do that, I've got a terminal connection once again to the ASA device here, and what I need to do is go to global config mode, and now I'm in global config mode, and the first thing we're going to do is set up the DHCP pool of addresses. So we're going to put in the command DHCPD, and we'll set up the addresses, address, and then the pool. And in the lab, they want you to try to put in a pool from address 1.5 to 192.168.1.100. And when you do that, let's see here, I'm missing a piece to the command here. At the end, I also need to tell it which interface. There we go. So the command is DHCPD address, then your pool range, and then the interface, in this case inside interface. And you can see it tells me that I'm limited to 32 addresses for my pool. So I can't do 5 to 100. So I will change then the range to 1.5 to 1.36, and now I have a range of 32 IP addresses. So now I've got my DHCP pool of addresses set, and the next thing I need to do is tell DHCP what our DNS servers we're going to use, what DNS servers we're going to use. So we could say DHCPD, and then I'll put in a question mark, and you can see that one of the options is DNS here. Configure the IP addresses of the DNS servers after this keyword. So we'll say DNS, put it in a question mark, and then the host name of server 1. So we'll just put the same IP address of our ASA device, 192.168.1.1, and so now our DNS server is configured for DHCP. And last but not least, we need to set up DHCPD, and we're going to use this word right here, enable, and then we'll put in a question mark, and you can see that we're going to enable it either on the inside or on the outside interface. So we'll set it up on the inside interface. So now DHCP is enabled on the inside. Now if this works, and it should be working right now, we should be able to pick up a DHCP IP address on our client. Before we do that, let's do a show run DHCPD. You can see that DNS is set, and the pool is set, and it's enabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into basically my network and sharing center, the command prompt, and go to my local area connection here, my Ethernet connection, and we'll go to properties, and we'll configure our IP version 4 settings, and we'll switch from 1.3, our static address, to obtain an IP address automatically and also for DNS. We'll click OK, close that out, and we'll open up a command prompt, ipconfig release, and ipconfig /renew. We should pick up an IP address from the ASA device. And you can see we picked up the address 192.168.1.6. So it looks like it worked. We can ping the ASA device. If we put in an IP config /all, you can see that it has the gateway address 1.1, the DHCP, and the DNS server address 1.1 here. So that worked out pretty nicely. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is we want to set up the ASA device so that we can secure shell into the ASA device and not have to use Telnet. Now to do this, first we're going to set up a AAA user account using the local database of the ASA device. So let's do that now. I'm going to close this out, close this, and I'm in global config mode here on the ASA device. And we're going to start by setting up a user account. So what we'll do is we'll say username, admin, and then a password, Cisco123, and that sets up the user admin with the password Cisco123. And now we'll just do AAA authentication. Whoops. And then let's put in a question mark here to see some of the modes here. And so we can set up, let's see here, HTTP, listener, serial, and there's SSH, and there's Telnet. So we're going to tell it that we want to use SSH, and the next command is console, and a question mark. And the last but not least, we're either going to put in local using the database built into the ASA device for AAA, or we could put in the name of a Radius or TACACS server that we may have. So we're just going to put in local in all caps. And now AAA authentication for SSH will use the local database. We're going to set the same thing up for Telnet. All right. Now that we've done that, the ASA device will look to its local usernames and local username and passwords, its local database of users for SSH and Telnet connections. So what we need to do now is we need to set up some keys that we can use to access the ASA device. So we're going to set up some RSA keys. Now to do that, I'm going to do crypto key. I'm going to put in a question mark. And the first thing I'm going to do is zero out the keys. So I'm going to say zeroize question mark RSA. And that will zero out the keys. And you can see that the keys have already been zeroed out. So now we'll come back, crypto key generate RSA modulus, we'll say 1024. You can see here that RSA, you put in a question mark, provide the number of modulus bits on the command line. Modulus, if you put in a question mark, it'll tell you the different values that you can put in. 1000, 2000, 512, or 768. We'll use 1024 bit. And the generation has begun, so the keys have been created. Now, we're going to save those. So we need to either do a copy run start or a write question mark to memory. Save active configuration to the flash. Notice before we did a write erase to erase the startup config, and now we could do a write memory to save the config. So we'll say write mem. Okay, so now that we've set up our RSA keys, what we want to do next is now set up which addresses have access to the SSH or to Telnet. So what we'll do is we'll say SSH, set up a pool of addresses to access the ASA device. Of course, we want the 192.168.1.0 network. to have access, secure shell access to the ASA device from the inside interface. And then what we can do is we can say also from the outside, if we want to allow outside access, we will say that one host, 172.16.3.3, and we'll make sure it's only one host by putting in 255.255.255.255, has access from the outside. And then we'll set up the SSH timeout, change it to 10 minutes. Okay. So if that worked, we should be able to SSH into the ASA device from a host 172.16.3.3 from outside of the network. If we look at our diagram here, you can see that attached to R3, which is attached to the switch 3, S3, is PCC at 172.16.3.3. Now I have a remote desktop connection to that client right here. And let's see here if we can see I've got this remote desktop connection to 172.16.3.3, and I have PuTTY installed on this client. Let's open it up. And let's see if we can secure shell SSH into the ASA device. So we'll say SSH, and we'll put in the IP address, 209. If we look at our diagram, the IP address is 209.165.200.226. 209.165.200.226 on port 22. Open. And you can see that we're going to have to accept the keys and trust the keys. We'll hit yes. And you can see log in as, and notice we have to put in our username, not just the password. So we'll put in admin and the password Cisco123, and we're into the ASA device. So we're able to secure shell using PuTTY into the ASA device using the AAA user account that we set up for admin with a password of Cisco123. And that worked out really well. In the next part, part 6, we're going to set up a DMZ, and that should be pretty fun.